You are a Locked On Braves postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
And hello and welcome into the Braves postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the Atlanta Braves delivering yet another victory in Houston, very similar to Game 1, 6-2, the final score. Atlanta has secured a series win over the Houston Astros, and that, of course, sounds reminiscent of the last time they were in Houston, though, as we talked about last night, the stakes much, much higher last time around in the 2021 World Series. Either way, the Braves are on their way to a very good road trip, have a chance to sweep the Astros in Game 3. We'll, of course, talk about that, and we'll take you back through Game 2, all the big news, and unfortunately, an injury update for another major Braves player. We'll get to that as we continue on here. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube, and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards where you can compare your progress with friends. Download Monopoly Go free at the App Store or on Google Play. Jake, it looks like the Braves have enjoyed playing a bit of Monopoly there in Houston. And for the Astros, it has been hitting bankrupt here lately. I'm going to stop with the puns, but either way, the Braves have to be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, they might want to take some real estate out there, the way they've been playing here lately. And it's been, it's fun, obviously, winning these games on the road as they have. Comeback fashion on Sunday, going out to Houston, who we talked about and struggling a little bit coming in, but still a really good ball club over there. And the Braves already clinching the series with Darius Vines and Reynaldo Lopez pitching the first two games. Now you got Fried waiting in the wings going for the sweep. So got off to a great start here. Would love to finish it off, obviously.
Yeah, and winning these first couple of games with a guy that you were just giving an opportunity in Game 1 in Darius Vines, who I thought did an adequate job. And Reynaldo Lopez just continued doing what he has done so well since joining the Braves rotation, and that is going out there, throwing 6 strong innings, and turning it over to the bullpen. He did it again against the Astros in this 6-2 win here on Tuesday at Minute Maid Park. Reynaldo Lopez, these 6 shutout innings, he has now tossed 18 innings, Jake, and allowed 1 run across his first 3 starts. I know we talked a lot about this, and we'll get into it more as the show goes on, but the decision to make Lopez a starter after he'd had success in the bullpen and the Braves had just signed him, and you might have thought, okay, they're just going for the world's best bullpen. This is a move that could really pay off for the Braves if the early returns are any indication of what Reynaldo Lopez is capable of.
We touched on it yesterday, the fact that, right now he's the best Braves pitcher, at least the first 3 times through the rotation. But, there is a chance that he leaps over Charlie Morton, becomes the number 3 guy in the rotation right now behind Fried and Sale. And the way he's pitching right now, who's really to question that? And this is a guy who, coming into spring training, I feel like he had to earn that spot. Now, I feel like he was the heavy, maybe not heavy, but he was at least the favorite coming into it. But he still had to prove it and still had to show Braves coaching staff that he could get it done. And he did enough of that in spring training to earn the job. And now he's gone out there and shown that, he may need to just stay here. There may be no more talk of him going back to the bullpen. Obviously a long way to go, but you couldn't ask for a much better start than what he's done so far in his first 3 outings. Like you said, giving up just 1 earned run. You can maybe fault your way to a good start here or there, but 3 in a row like that in just a dominant fashion as they've been. And look, maybe one of the biggest questions in my mind was not just the velocity, but how are you going to get through the lineup 2 or 3 times with just 2 pitches? And even as good as they may be, and then you go up against an Astros lineup that has the top 4 that they have in there, and he's able to do just that. And I think that speaks volumes for how good of a starting pitcher he can be and just how good that fastball slider combination is.
Yeah, it definitely is. A fastball slider is a combination that works for a lot of pitchers and can work extremely well. But you're right. Going from the bullpen where you can have success in short bursts to being able to sustain that and to give the lineup a little bit of something different to think about, that not just second, but also third time through when you're Lopez and you're tossing 6 innings, that I think is part of the challenge of one of the questions that was surrounding him. It wasn't, is he talented enough to do it? Is he going to be able to, sustain, I think, across those 6 frames? And I'll kind of go back to something you said, not to get lost in this conversation again, but coming into spring training, I really felt like Bryce Elder was the favorite. Again, to use your phrase, not the heavy favorite, but I thought he'd done enough in 2023 to at least get the opportunity to start the season in rotation. But I also did not see the Reynaldo Lopez conversation really being one that would end up with him in the rotation per se when he was signed. But as we saw in spring training, it became really the only intriguing positional battle for the Braves. And as it turns out, not only was it a positional battle for one spot, but it is going to show you again that the Braves are going to have to go through some of their depth and hopefully have the quality options to be able to fill out this rotation with the loss of Spencer Strider for the year. We are going to stick a pin in that conversation because I think we've had it enough, even though every fifth day we may have to revisit it a time or three. Orlando Arcia in this game, also a big performer for the Braves. He was providing all the run support, a home run in the second inning, a solo shot that was reviewed and then upheld. So the Braves got a 1-0 lead on that. And he had a sac fly in the seventh. It looked like it was going to be Reynaldo Lopez and Orlando Arcia providing the Braves with this victory. As Hunter Brown on the flip side of this, I know we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about him, but he had really, really struggled, and that might be putting it lightly, in some of his recent outings and also in the second half of his rookie season last year. Against the Braves lineup, I was not expecting 6 innings of 2-run ball from him, but he was able to find a way to keep the Astros in the game and have his best start of the year.
Yeah, I mean, good on him, certainly. We talked about it yesterday a little bit. He got a really good fastball, and he has a lot of strikeouts even last year with an ERA over 5. Still racked up the strikeouts. Got 11 whiffs in this one, 12 called strikes, 4 whiffs on 19 swings against that four-seam fastball. But the Braves have helped a couple of their starters kind of get back on track after some rough starts. I don't know what's up with that. Got another one in JP France, who we'll talk about later, coming off a rough start. But Hunter Brown, he looked really good. I thought the location command was much better.
Yeah, and if you were the Astros and you're trying to sort out this rotation, clearly they need to get Justin Verlander back and healthy. But if they could get Hunter Brown on track, all of a sudden this Astros rotation, which is searching for answers in a manner that I think is a little bit more frantic perhaps than what the Braves are dealing with, they may start feeling like the Houston Astros again. Because coming into this game, I mean, and you pointed this out already, and we've seen it, and we know these guys, it's a pretty good lineup. It's a capable lineup, but unable to solve Reynaldo Lopez in this one, and the Braves were able to tack on some runs late that ended up coming in handy, though I think that we would have seen Raisel Iglesias a little bit sooner in the ninth inning had it been a 2-0 lead for Atlanta. But putting all of that aside, 4 more runs come across late. How about Luis Guillorme, a 2-run double, a ground rule variety? He basically just dropped a 67-mile-an-hour pop-up on the line. That was a call on the field. It was challenged and it stood, and it took a carom into the stands. It had the bases loaded, so 2 runs come across, and then Chadwick Trop with a 2-run double that highlighted that 4-run frame. Bottom of the order coming through big time for the Braves, and this one tack on what Orlando Arcia was doing, and it was really a show for the bottom third of that Braves order.
It was 6 through 9, drove in all 6 runs in this game for the Atlanta Braves. They combined for 7 hits down there. And this is a game where a lot of close calls went the Braves' way. It seems like for the first couple of weeks of the season, a lot of those close calls were going against us. Maybe things kind of turning around, but even Lopez had a couple of pitches off the plate. The strike zone seemed to widen up a little bit, and I think that was going for both sides, but Lopez took more advantage of it in this start. You had the home run for Arcia that just bounced off that railing over there. Don't know where the ball went after that, but it was ruled a home run. And then you had the hit by Guillorme that just touched the line down there to help break the game open there in the ninth inning. So baseball is a game of inches, says it all the time, and this one proved that. There was several close calls in this game, and fortunately went the Braves' way.
It definitely is a game of inches, and you'll take it. And, of course, if you're going to hit a home run in Houston, if you hit one over the train tracks into the apartment complex across the street, I've heard that's a good way to put some runs on the board. They call that a no-doubter, and I think we've seen one of those, at least at Minute Maid Park, in the not-too-distant past. But putting all of that aside, the work by Orlando Arcia and the bottom of that Braves order certainly highlighting what was a good night all around for the Braves once again, even though it wasn't the usual suspects at the top who were providing all the run scoring. Marcell Ozuna was able to extend his hitting streak, doing so again in the ninth inning with a broken bat single. That sounds an awful lot like a conversation we were having 24 hours ago. 2 hits for Orlando Arcia, 2 for Jared Kelenic, the RBI double for Luis Guillorme, and 2 hits for Chadwick Trop in this one as he drove in a couple of runs and had 2 doubles in this game, as a matter of fact. So the bottom half of the order getting it done. Ronald Acuna Jr., Michael Harris, Austin Riley, each had hits as well as the Braves out-hit the Astros 11-7 in this 6-2 victory. We got a lot more to get into in this one. We're going to talk a little bit more about Reynaldo Lopez, who turned in his best start of the year. We're going to get inside those numbers, get inside the box score a little bit more, and we're going to talk about the Braves bullpen, a couple of key arms and some good things that we saw from the men who came out of that bullpen for the Atlanta Braves, and a little bit about the ninth inning as well. And as you know, we have some injury news to talk about, as Atlanta is going to be without Ozzie Albies for a number of weeks. We'll get into all of that as the Braves postcast continues right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends and get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's a Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress with your buddies. There's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for your iconic properties, and more. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb that leaderboard. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which means that getting tickets is even faster and easier. If you want the best deal, the prices on Game Time's app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, which is a pretty cool aspect of it. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And it's not just baseball. With Game Time's last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and much more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, and for a limited time, all users can get $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the Game Time app with the code FIRSTPITCH. Terms apply. That is the code FIRSTPITCH for $20 off from March 25th to April the 14th. Only download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The Braves, with a 6-2 win over the Houston Astros in Game 2 of this series, can go for a sweep on Wednesday. We'll set you up for what is ahead, but let's talk a little bit more about what Reynaldo Lopez showed us and, of course, what we saw out of the Braves bullpen, which has done its job this first couple of games in Houston. We talked a lot about the struggles of Houston's pitching staff and the injuries they've been dealing with and just flat out some bad performance in some cases. But the Braves pitching staff, which had a couple of question marks, at least with Darius Vines getting the start in Game 1. And as we talked about, can Reynaldo Lopez continue doing what he's doing? The answer to those two questions was Darius Vines did just fine, and Reynaldo Lopez looks great. But the Atlanta bullpen has also done some pretty good stuff here in this one. But Jake, as you look at Lopez and you think about what he can do moving forward and the fact that, again, his responsibilities have grown immensely with the absence of Spencer Strider, seeing him pumping 97 miles an hour and carrying that velocity through the game, I think that's one thing that a lot of people, myself included, wanted to see him do.
Yeah, that's huge. We talked about that as well, as the velocity. He's got the opportunity to tick that thing up when he needs to. I mean, we saw him hitting 100 out of the bullpen last year, obviously in shorter stints. I don't think we're going to see that, but it's there. I mean, he certainly has the capability of doing so. So that is great to see. 95.5 mile per hour average fastball velocity in this game, maxed out at 97.5 there. So he has that in his back pocket if he needs to. But that slider tonight was just wipe out to me. I mean, that's obviously the pitch to go to. 8 whiffs on 16 swings. You don't need to be a mathematician to know that's a 50% whiff rate on that pitch. I mean, that is what you want. You want to be able to locate that fastball. The harder you can throw it, obviously, the better, but it needs to be well located first and foremost. And when you can do that and then run the slider off of that, especially away to righties, I mean, you saw him make Altuve, who's a really good hitter, makes a lot of contact, look bad on a couple of swings as well on that slider. So, I mean, it's such a dangerous pitch for him when it's on, but it really all feeds off that fastball location. Only had to throw 10 combined changeups and curveballs in this one, 5 of each. I thought he threw a couple of good changeups, got one swing and miss on that pitch, but again, hasn't really needed those pitches. I thought you saw him throw both those pitches in a little bit more in that 6th inning as he went through that lineup a third time. But I mean, for the most part, it's fastball slider. I know you touched on the bullpen. We'll get more into it, but you mentioned velocity ticking up. Tyler Matzik ticking up as well. And that's something that you mentioned, as the season goes on and as he gets further removed from the injury, perhaps we see that velocity get back up a little bit. 95.5 max fastball velo for Tyler Matzik on Tuesday night. So, again, that's something else to look forward to as well with him.
Yeah, I'll get into that in just a moment. The line score for this one for the Braves, 6 runs on 11 hits, no errors, 7 men left on base. They pick up the win and improve to 11-5 on the year. A winning road trip with back-to-back series wins, a chance to win 5 out of the 6 games on the road. That's a pretty good way to go out away from home and, come on back with the opportunity to just extend a lead in the National League East, start building that thing up, because we know as the season wears on, there's a lot of challenges that we're going to face. And again, we're going to get into a few of those as we go along as well. Astros 2 runs, 7 hits, no errors, 7 men left on base. They're now just 6-13 to start the season. A very slow start for a perennial playoff team that seems to always find its way to be there in the American League Championship Series by season's end, but not the start that they had in mind. Winning pitcher is Reynaldo Lopez. He's now 2-0, 6 innings of shutout ball, 4 hits, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts for him. Hunter Brown pitched well, tough luck loss for him. 6 innings of 2-run ball. He drops to 0-3 on the year. Just 3 walks for him, only 3 strikeouts as well. Did give up the home run to Orlando Arcia, but a pretty good start for Hunter Brown, and one I would say he very much needed. A save goes to Reynaldo Lopez, who came in and got the final out of the game after Aaron Bummer got into some trouble. But yeah, let's talk about the bullpen a bit. You touched on Tyler Matzik, couple of strikeouts in a scoreless inning. I saw that 95 miles an hour flash up there, and as I've said, and you know, it's kind of goes without, well, it doesn't go without saying because I just said it, so let me talk myself into a circle with that. But, you know, with Matzik and with a lot of Tommy John pitchers, it does take time to rebuild a lot of that arm strength, but he has looked mechanically very comfortable. He has looked like the Tyler Matzik that we expect to see once that fastball gets a little bit more lively and coming out of his hand the way it did on Tuesday night in Houston might be an indication that he is just slowly but surely getting back to perhaps the old Tyler Matzik, which, by the way, was one of the best relief pitchers in baseball for a moment in time, and one that Braves fans are not going to forget anytime soon.
No, certainly not. And look, it's really the same thing for Reynaldo Lopez, who is primarily fastball slider. It's similar for Matzik. Yes, it'd be great to throw harder, but look, he was really good early on in the season when he's able to locate that fastball, get ahead, and then throw that slider. So, you know, command is obviously always going to win out, but if you can command it at 95, 96, maybe we see him get back to some 97s. That's just going to make it much harder for batters to square him up. But certainly been able to get it done. Did give up a hard hit ball the first batter that he faced, but then settled down, as you mentioned, got those strikeouts. But would do wonders for this bullpen if Matzik can turn into anything like what we saw in 2021 and the pitcher that he's been in the past.
Yeah, and the multiple lefty options the Braves have this year is also pretty important. And speaking of somebody who has become very important to the Braves bullpen and somebody who gained some velocity as he went along last year, that would be Joe Jimenez. He has looked outstanding thus far in 2024. A big re-signing for the Braves to keep him around on a multi-year deal. I think this is a guy that for a lot of teams, Jake, could be throwing in high leverage, maybe closing for a few clubs across baseball. This speaks to the depth that the Braves have in that bullpen, though, to have a guy like this that you can bring in who keeps getting the job done time in and time out.
He does, and it's almost just becoming, when he comes out there, it's no brainer. He's going to get it done. I mean, he is shutting things down, just 8 pitches tonight, and he's also one. It's not the track record of Ozuna. It's not the turnaround that he had, but he's somebody who came over, as you mentioned, coming off the injury, had a little bit of a slow start. Fans are already wondering if that trade was bad, giving up, a good prospect in Justin Henry Malloy. He has a turnaround season, starts getting higher leverage situations. The next thing you know, he's re-signed, come back, and he looks great. And again, that's Alex Anthopoulos. That's the front office. Just great recognition by them, seeing Joe Jimenez and what he was and what he could ultimately be. And he's just that guy right now. 7th, 8th inning, whenever you need, come in, and he just seems to shut things down.
Yeah, he has done that, and the Braves would like to have this consistency out of whoever they call upon in these situations, and having the depth will allow these guys to not necessarily get overworked. I mean, it's a major league bullpen. Guys are going to be called upon sometimes to throw a little bit more than maybe you would like at times, depending on the situation, the opponent, and all of those other things. But as you pointed out in game 1 of this series, I mean, Brian Snitker has been managing this thing the way you would manage a game that you want to win. He was not messing around, brought in Matzik, who got the job done in the 7th inning, went to Jimenez and would have gone to Reynaldo Lopez first, but the Braves put a 4 spot on the board in the top of the 9th. We're hoping to stay away from him. Unfortunately, he had warmed up, so I guess getting in the game and getting one batter is not the worst thing in the world, but it just seemed like Houston was maybe starting to show a little signs of life against Aaron Bummer. 3 hits, couple of runs, both of them earned, a walk for him as well. Gave up the home run to Kyle Tucker. That's what started the whole thing. And then with 2 outs, just kind of a little bleeder base hit that was the last batter that Bummer faced. It seems like he's got an awful lot of bad luck on batted balls, maybe just more than the average pitcher. But clearly, having 4 left-handed options with Bummer, with Matzik, with Dylan Lee, and with A.J. Minter, that's something that is a net positive for this bullpen.
It is. You want to have as many options as you can out there from the left-handed side. Alex Anthopoulos noticed that last year when they pretty much ran into a case where it was only AJ Minter that they had. Rough night for Aaron Bummer. 4 hard hit balls allowed. That's as many as Reynaldo Lopez gave up in 6 innings. So Astros hitters were just all over him. But he had a really good run before that. And who knows? Look, it had turned into a close game that then turned into a bit of a blowout. And next thing you know, Bummer's going into the game. And, maybe that played a little bit into it. And Iglesias, he's been up the last 2 nights, came in to pitch. I would hope he'd still be available on Wednesday if the Braves do need him, and hopefully they need him. But just a one-batter face there to get out of a little bit of a jam. But I'm not going to look too much into the outing for Aaron Bummer. But as you said, hopefully it doesn't ignite this Astros offense that's been a little bit down here in this series.
Yeah, you mentioned, and there were some hard hit balls. It just seemed like he was going to be able to kind of skirt out of that whole situation without having to use Iglesias. But either way, I would think, just based on, the way things have gone, that Rysel would be available in that finale. But we'll see how that all plays out. The Braves could also score a whole bunch of runs, and maybe he could just take the day off. I don't know. We'll see how that whole thing plays out when we do get into our conversation about Game 3, which is going to be coming your way in just a moment. We also have to have a conversation that nobody's going to enjoy. Ozzie Albies with a fractured toe. He's going to miss some time. How much? What are the Braves going to do in his stead? We'll talk about that as the Braves postcast continues. If you're struggling to close deals and business-to-business selling is tougher than ever for you, that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage with high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for that 60-day trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Braves and Astros will meet again on Wednesday afternoon at Minute Maid Park. It's an afternoon affair with Max Fried on the mound for the first time since November the 2nd, 2021 in Houston. I'm sure he's going to have a few memories when he heads out there. Again, not quite the same vibe, not quite the same ambiance as you have when the entire championship is on the line, but that was the last time that Fried towed the slab in Houston. He's going to be on the mound against J.P. France of the Astros as these two teams will wrap up this series and the Braves will go for that sweep. We're going to talk all about that Game 3, but Jake, unfortunately now the time has come where we have to talk about Ozzie Albies landing on the 10-day injured list with a fractured right great toe is what they've called it. I've always referred to it as a big toe. It's the same thing, but either way, it's a frustrating injury. Another one of these for Ozzie Albies. He really seemed snake bit a couple of years ago. This feels like one that's eerily reminiscent of that, but hopefully with no surgery required, it's not going to cause him to miss, as much time as maybe was initially feared, but we don't have an exact timetable on when he could be back. And we both know, as does everybody watching here, how important Ozzie Albies is to the Braves every day, both on the field and off.
Yeah, he is one of the leaders in that clubhouse, certainly. I think you got to feel at least somewhat comforting knowing that he played through that the rest of the game. I'm sure I know it really hurt him and obviously kept bothering him to the point where, they had to take a look at it. But hopefully that means it's not going to be too much longer, but certainly you want to get that healed up. But this is where the Braves depth comes into play. And you got MLB guys in Luis Guillorme. You call up a David Fletcher. And, hopefully they can hold down the fort for a little while until Ozzie is able to come back. But no doubt you want Ozzie back. You want him in that lineup. You want him batting second up there, driving in runs, hitting home runs. And like you said, being a real leader in that clubhouse. So you hate to see this. And like you said, it is reminiscent of what happened a couple of years ago when he's fouling ball off his leg. And it just put the body armor all over that whole front side there. I don't know what you need to do, but stop fouling baseballs off yourself and breaking bones. But frustrating for Ozzie Albies, certainly. But again, hopefully it's not anything that's going to keep him out too long.
Yeah, Brian Snitker, when discussing it prior to the game and confirming the news the Braves had just put out in the afternoon or earlier in the day about Ozzie being placed on the injured list. And no surgery is certainly a good thing, but that indicates it's going to still be a number of weeks. Does that mean 2 or 3? Will it be a month? Will the Braves kind of play it slowly so that they don't rush him back? all of these things could be in play. But I think when Ozzie Albies is ready to play, the Braves are most certainly going to look to get him back there as soon as they can. We just don't know exactly what that's going to look like. You mentioned David Fletcher got called up from AAA Gwinnett. He was an offseason acquisition who was outrighted off the 40-man roster, put out there on waivers. No club claimed him. The Braves still owe him, I believe, about $15 million over the next couple of years, including, I think, a third-year buyout. All of that being said, he has had some success at the big league level. He can put the bat on the ball. He's got a good on-base skills as well. Not much power and run production the way that Ozzie Albies has, but if you can get a steady guy in there to just come in, find his way on base, chip in where he can, and play solid defense at second base, I think you'll be pretty happy with that until you can get Ozzie Albies back. And I think Fletcher could check a number of those boxes. He was batting .280 with Gwinnett and 60 plate appearances with a .383 on-base percentage. But again, not a lot of power to speak of. But Jake, I don't think that the Braves offense is lacking for power, and they can make an adjustment in the lineup to move Michael Harris up to the 2 spot, which I think is also overall a net positive if you're not going to have Ozzie Albies available.
Yeah, me and you have talked about it. I know that Michael Harris could find his way up into that 2 hole at some point. You hope it's not at the expense of an Ozzie Albies injury,
Right.
But I think he'll be fine right there. And David Fletcher, too, I believe he's a better defensive shortstop than Gourmet. So if you need to give RC another day off like the Braves did in this series, I think Fletcher could be the guy there. But otherwise, those two likely to kind of mix and match there at second base. But pretty similar profiles, I think, for both of those guys. They just kind of get it done. They're baseball players. They're going to put the ball in play, give you some good defense. So, again, it's just you want Ozzie there, but when you're going to have injuries like this, and it's nice to have guys who have that MLB experience that you can plug in, like I said, to just keep things steady at the position. And the Braves lineup is so deep that they can cover it for a little while.
Yeah, I think that they can. You just don't want to have to be covering it for player after player after player. And we know that through 16 games this season, the Braves lost their starting catcher on opening day to a strained oblique in Sean Murphy. After 2 starts, Spencer Strider's elbow and the surgery that came out of that has caused him to miss the rest of the season. And now Ozzie Albies is going to be on the injured list for at least a little while, out indefinitely with that fractured great toe. So we'll see when they can get Ozzie back, hopefully sooner than later, but they're going to have to go without for at least a little while here. Game 3 of this series, Max Fried on the mound, 1-0 with an 8.74 ERA. No, that's still not a typo, but it did come down yet again with 6 1/3 innings of 1-run ball in his last start against Miami. And JP France, the righty for the Astros, is 0-2 with an 8.22 ERA. Jake, I predict someone's ERA is going to go down. Someone else's may go up in this one if the Braves offense can get started early. And maybe that Ronald Acuna Jr. guy finally hits one over the wall.
Yeah, he's so close again. And this night hit one that just went foul that 9th inning before getting hit by a pitch. Did reach base twice again. He continues to get on multiple times a game, but still looking for that first home run. I'm excited to see Max Fried get back out there. Hopefully he can build off that start in Miami. Will obviously be a little bit of a tougher challenge against this Astros lineup, but would love to see that cut that ERA in half once again. Would love to see that happen for Max Fried, and would love to see this Braves offense score a little bit earlier in this one. I mean, score whenever you want to, but, we don't have to wait till the 9th inning every time. And I mentioned JP France, another Astros starter that's coming off a bit of a rough outing, gave up 8 earned in 4 innings his last time out on 8 hits and 4 walks. So, like I said, the first 2 pitchers were the Astros, kind of got back on track against the Braves. Hopefully they don't let that happen to a third starter, and they can get out early to a big lead against JP France and go for the sweep.
Yeah, well, it is worth noting that one of these starters was sent to the minor leagues afterwards, but I think that was more of a procedural move. But you're right. It hasn't been bombs away against these starting pitchers for the Astros. It has been, though, against the bullpen. JP France, it could be the guy that maybe bucks that trend in a way that won't be so great for him, but could be great for the Braves. I wanted to bring this up. We're not going to dwell on it, but just to throw it out there, obviously the injury scare for Ronald Acuna Jr., brief though it was, diving, sliding feet first to make a catch early in the game, had a ball, looked like it bounced off his knee, limping around just a bit, stayed in the game, seemed to be fine. The Braves could do without any injuries to any more major players, and they could do without ever having to deal with a major injury to Ronald Acuna Jr. again, most certainly. So I think everybody was able to breathe a collective sigh of relief, including Ronald Acuna Jr., who wants nothing more than to be out there each and every day. It's lefty Max Fried on the mound against JP France, the right-hander for the Astros, game 3 of the series. Atlanta going for the sweep. 2:10 p.m. Eastern Time, first pitch at Minute Maid Park. That brings us to the end of this edition of the Braves Postcast. We appreciate you joining us once again. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up. Leave us a comment and share the show with a friend. We'd appreciate that. Also, leave us those likes and comments and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast, because you'll get the audio version of the postcast and everything else Jake has for you all season long. The Braves with a 6-2 win over the Astros on Tuesday, going for the sweep on Wednesday. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. We will catch you next time, and until then, so long, everyone.